Today, Janelle, we get to talk about energy intelligence method, the energy intelligence method, and one specific thing, and that is emotional addictions. And this has to do with your fifth academic article. So could you just kind of start out and explain what is an emotional or an energetic addiction?
It really speaks to in the title itself, right? It's the addiction of a type of emotion, and the body gets used to a specific surge, and that becomes its comfortable place. And so, if it was the surge of happiness and comfortable as happiness, well, then that type of addiction is supportive of your survival, of your thriving. But if that is surge of emotion is fear, because fear can give us a sense of empowerment. Fear will punch in adrenaline, which can push us into fight, and fight gives us adrenaline and it gives us that sense of power and control. So if we've felt in our lives the lack of control, then one of our coping mechanisms, and unintentionally, but the body finds its way to feel successful, to feel like it's thriving, that it is overcoming. That's what we want. It's the urge, it's the instinctual urge to move away from what harms us and towards pleasure. But that can be skewed because when I have these surges of fight, I bring in a dump a bunch of adrenaline into my system and the body feels empowered and feels strong and feels everything that in its non-triggered state, it feels the opposite. So it will subconsciously, most of the time, create circumstances, put us into circumstances that push this button for us so that we can feel the empowerment again. It literally creates a dependency, so it's not a healthy, I'm naturally strong from the inside out. It's not a, I really do feel confident. It's a masked confidence, as you can imagine. So just like, and we call it that addiction because we're relating it to how often alcohol can be used to drown the saying, I'm drowning my sorrows, because it masks for a temporary time a feeling of loss or frustration, guilt, whatever that person would be drinking away, numbing, usually like a numbing effect. But we can do that with these different emotionally triggered responses in our body, and our body gives us these natural chemicals that are used for, let's go back to our adrenaline story, that are used for saving us in extreme situations. You hear about people that have been injured in the ocean and were able to swim with this broken arm or with a shark bite or with different extreme injuries. They've been able to do extreme things. One, the water's cold and that probably aided their well-being, but also the dose of adrenaline allows you to do unnaturally unnatural things. I trained horses for a long time, several years, loved training horses. And one time I got kicked, and I got kicked in the rib cage. So you just, the chiropractor said, yeah, that's like the equivalent of a grown man swinging a bat full on and landing a solid one on your rib cage. Yeah, it felt just like that. It hurt something fierce. After I got over the original shock, like I landed on my knees and I was like wiggling my fingers. Yep, they still work. Wiggle my toes. Yep, they still work. Okay, game on. I got up. I worked that horse and I said, you are not going to get away with that. So I worked that horse and put her up and then collapsed. But you think, how in the world did I do that? I was dosed with this adrenaline that gave me that soup beyond human, what my normal reaction would be. And I had this power to work that horse and say, you are not going to get away with that, put her up, etc. So, but we can get addicted to that. It happens in, like, that was a very natural response to an injury. It's a one-time event. I don't go back there. Like, I don't recreate things that injure me at that level to get that dose again. Sometimes when we have different types of traumatic events in our lives, and usually when we're little, and how we're perceiving them, we lose the sense of control. We lose the sense of our personal power. So we can create these events in our lives that will push our buttons to anger. We'll get a dose of adrenaline and it gives us that empowerment feeling. And it became a coping skill for a time. But then we're stuck there because the body's literally addicted to the chemicals, that dosage of adrenaline. We'll stick to that story. This is now controlling us instead of us using it to get through a scenario or a situation. The addiction is now controlling us. It's subtle because a lot of times I was speaking with a woman and she was sharing how she says, well, I always am overlooked. Everything in her always was a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. So I'm listening to that and I'm starting to see the pattern. A scenario would happen, choices that she would make. So not a guilt shame, it's awareness. Because with awareness, we can cause change, we can heal. So that's the point of this story and bringing this up. So as she's sharing her story, she would make choices, choose jobs, choose friendships, choose relationships or lack of relationships, and then feel so alone, feel like I just never have enough money, feel like I just never seem to be able to get ahead. And then start there'd be an opportunity for a good friendship or good promotion or go take this step, go back to school, perfectly intelligent person, let's add to your education, but would choose not to. There'd be this fear, this what if, what, and that would put it back into, so it would recreate this victim circle. And this victim circle would then, she could go to those people that support her, emotional support, and they'd be, oh, I'm so sorry for you. Oh my gosh, yeah, and they would financially give her money, sit and listen for hours about woe situations, and it just circles and circles and circles. There's an emotional addiction. She is addicted to the poor me, the need for people to come up and feel sorry for,
Comfort her.
comfort her. She's not intentionally taking their money because of, that
Yeah.
kind of another kind of crooked thought or something like that. But I need that support. So her desperate need for affirmation, she's addicted to this type of getting affirmation, this type of getting personal support from others and encouragement instead of in healthy ways, which we would call healthy ways is having positive friendships. And number one, it's my relationship with me. I have a positive relationship with me. I like me. I like being with me. I am happy with who I am. I'm encouraged about what I can do. I'm going to build. I'm going to grow. That's that healthy relationship with self. Then I have healthy relationships with others. I bring something to the table and I enjoy what my friends bring to the table. And we have a great, beneficial, mutually supportive relationship. And it's good, it's positive. And that's how it's built to be. But when we start with something that says, I am desperately not enough, whatever energy, whatever woundedness is in there, because it can be a combination of things, right? Depending on a person's story. And a learned behavior or a coping skill from an early age was being a victim. And if I'm a victim, people feel sorry for me. I can put on the sweetness. I'm so sweet. I'm so nice. I'm so everything that I think everybody wants to be. And people go, wow, yeah, it's just a bummer that you struggle so much. It's like, let me help you. Let me hear you. Their intentions come in good, but now it becomes they're enabling. They're enabling a behavior that's self-sabotaging this individual. But the addiction is their need for their affirmation of her. And then the others are almost captured in some sort of guilt, shame, but they're enabling this behavior. And so it really starts creating
Environment.
its own environment that's non-supportive on so many levels. So that's the addicted piece. And just like in a chemical addiction outside of what we're talking about, like, drug addiction or alcohol addiction, it creates an environment of of
You crave
crazy.
it. You crave it.
Well, you crave it and you recreate it and you keep this cycle going, but it creates a culture around this person in themselves and around them that's dysfunctional because it's not just affecting the individual. And that's the same with any kind of addiction, right? Does it affect just the individual? Never. I don't know of a story. Maybe there's one out there, but I don't know of one. That's where emotional addiction and our awareness of it, why we're really speaking to this, is the importance of recognizing, because we could see and even go through, and it's connected to a trigger, which is connected to an event or a sequence of events and how we perceived them in our early years. And it created this pattern or influenced this pattern. So if we look at these things and it's like, I'm always a victim, if I always feel like I'm a victim to people, that's your first stop point. Okay, who's consistently there? Well, you are. And not in a guilt shame statement, but in an awareness statement. That's huge. Saying, oh, yeah, I'm the consistent one here. I can change towns, I can change friend groups, but who's still there? Well, you are. Yeah, you still are. What are you getting? How are you supported when you start that cycle? Look around you. What do people say? Are you relying on that to feed your ego, to feed who you are, to be valuable? Then you're addicted to it. You know that pattern. Because friends support us when we go through low points, and it should stop. And friends should be able to tell you, you're just starting to whine. That truth, those love moments of conversations. I've had those with friends where I've said, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell you what I see, and I accept however you choose to do this. That's not my journey. And I'm going to speak this because I love you. And I'm not afraid to hurt their feelings. I'm not trying to hurt their feelings, but friendships will tell you the truth. They'll tell you a perspective, whether it hurts or not. They'll love you enough to tell you their perspective. And if it's my job to choose what they tell me or not, and it's got to resonate with me, and they'll be okay. So I came into if I take it or not, right? So I came into a different gal's space, and she was struggling, and there was a pattern, an addictive pattern, no, but a pattern, yes. And I said, friend, there's an energy in you of you've been abused. Therefore, your energy says, I deserve it. And that was playing out and echoing in all these different scenarios in her life. It's like you're not saying it, but your energy projects it. So, what do people do? They react to our energy. And so, she was getting this abusive abandonment energy back to her, and it was injuring. It was very injuring. And I said, but this is what's actually what I see going on. It's this energy in you, and we can heal that. And she's like, she just took it in. She's like, oh my gosh, I see what you're saying. We shifted that energy. She had a conversation with the close people in her life, and the whole scenario changed. That's healthy. How do you support each other as friends? You're there when you're low, but man, your shit's not mine. I'm here for you, but there's a boundary, right? A boundary there. And later we talk about that. We have written an article on boundaries. It's a super conversation. But back to this addictive pattern. If you're looking at yourself and you're going, oh, but I need that affirmation. What would I do without that affirmation? And you have that clingy feeling like I would not be able to survive. Then it's time to take a serious look about, wow, there's some energy, there's something here that's driving this. And you may understand what it is, you may not. That's where you reach out for help. That's when you work with a second set of eyes. That's where you work with me or somebody like me that can say, hey, this is where you're at, that can speak the truth to you in love. Because if you come to me, you're ready to change. You're ready for this to change. And we can heal the reason why that exists in the first place. It can shift. Then you just leapfrog over that. The addiction we become aware of, and we have a sequential step by step walk with people so that the addiction, your body wants it, needs it. Just that's why we use the word addiction. It wants it, needs it. So we walk and have a sequence of steps that help us grab that before it drags us down that road again and creates a new pattern. But that new pattern is really, really hard to impossible to shift if the energy doesn't shift first. So we really got to get down to that. And then these steps can be put into place and it can change.
The question I have is, if someone comes to you and they don't know what the issue is, they're just like, man, I feel off, or this isn't it. Do they normally know what the issue is, or do they misdiagnose themselves? Because I would think that if you get that wrong, it's going to take you down a whole different path. Like if I think my issue is self-esteem, but it's really trauma or it's an addiction I have, and I am working on something that's really not the root, then I'm going to keep actually reinforcing that.
Yeah, you can definitely focus on an area of that's visible, but that's not the point. That's not the cause. And you can just prolong the patterning back. You can just get on these thought loops, these practice loops that give you the feeling that you're doing something to help yourself. But that's part of the addiction. It's masked in there. I am helping myself. I am doing it, and see, I never get better. Or you soothe yourself with this, I'm doing this, but the pattern is just still rocking and rolling in your life, and it'll circle around and you'll create a chaos, make a decision that creates the chaos that makes you feel like a victim, that causes you to go to your friends and they all soothe you. Yes. And I said, man, I'm doing all this work. I know, keep it up. You're doing better. It's good. Yes, that, and then off you go again on this circle again. So identifying and getting what's really a cause is key. And coming into it thinking, understanding that it might not be what you think it is.
It often isn't.
It often isn't. And addictions play with your logic. It will justify, it will give you every reason why whatever is really at cause isn't the cause, because it's going to fight for its fix, so to speak.
One of the things I've learned from you is that these addictions can be very tricky, almost manipulative here, in the fact that you could take something that we would all say is positive, like helping other people, right?
Mhm.
That's positive, right? Who doesn't want to be a good person and help other people? But if that is maladaptive, if it's me helping you to stay dependent or codependent, or the earlier example was, if I'm giving you help all the time, I feel good about myself, even though, you're struggling, you're staying in this loop. So there's just lots of different angles it can take.
It sure can. Yeah, I need your praise. I need your acceptance. So I'm just going to give to you. I'm going to do everything I can for you. But what am I really addicted to is
Validation.
validation. And so if you don't validate me, I am again taken advantage of. I am again, why am I always, you'll start the person in that scenario will have those feelings. Why do people take advantage of me? Why,
I'm such a good
I'm
person. I
such,
help
I
people. I
help
do
people.
this. And they,
Yeah, but the root would be something that has and is in the line of I am desperately not enough, or abandonment, because it doesn't have to be directly connected to how it's playing out in somebody's life. It could be an abandonment challenge. Some individuals that have been adopted have had this deep feeling, and it's at early on in their life, right? So before they were even engaging in conscious thought, this feeling has imprinted that I am obviously not enough. I've been abandoned. And so it can play out or manifest in this type of cycle and pattern of people pleasing. That is all of these are self destructive. This is self destructive in that you can't please people. You can't become or morph into what other people want. It's impossible, because if they're not happy with themselves, you're never going to make them happy. But people will work individuals like that. Like, you want to make me happy? Awesome. And I'm never happy. So I'm going to just work you over the coals and you'll bend over backwards. And it's hell for that individual that's trying to make people happy. The healthy person would go, okay, I'm enough. But we really need to get down to why is that? There's a why in your experience that's given the deep identity. Because now we're talking about, now I do this class called trigger removal, like deep trigger removal. And what we're doing is we're going into identity. That means early childhood development. That means we're parallel rewriting the experience. We can rewrite the developmental early childhood development stage. We can't replace it. It's a parallel identity. But because the parallel identity, when we create that, is so much easier to live in. It's whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's without all the triggers. It's out without all the woundedness, because we go through it. It's just very in depth. It's an intense one-on-one program, but it is potent for shifting. Matter of fact, sometimes it is the key. It is the strategy that we need to do, because it gets down to the very developmental part of us. And that our brain is plastic. We can go and we can recreate that. There's a whole sequence of steps that put the new identity back in, the whole identity. And it's in line with who the individual is, not the perceived perception of themselves at a time. So it just creates this beautiful track of thinking, critical thinking, processing abilities. Neurologically, we rewire this early childhood development and then take out all the triggers and so on within those that were developed in that process or naturally. That's just a whole rabbit trail I went on. But why does that matter? Because that's when these things happen. That's when these imprints, we talk about imprints, that's when we get fears and create personas. All of these things happen in this early childhood development stage. So when we come fast forward and we're talking about being emotionally addicted to these different chemical surges that we can create through stimuli in our environment, we got to understand this part of our lives, this developmental part of our lives. We got to understand that so that we can work with individuals at that level for the depth of healing that causes the shift, not band-aids. Band-aids, we don't need them. Crutches, whatever you want to call that, the well-meaning and they do support to a degree. Let's just get down to that very reason it exists in the first place.
You brought up something that I wasn't anticipating, that was the trigger removal. And I know that is an extensive part of your program, and lots of people significantly benefit from them. I can't stress enough. Like, there's like minor tweaks and there's major tweaks, okay? But I have one question on that. And you said like creating a separate track. Would that be like if there was a car or something and it is broken, all kinds of just repair and just neglected or whatever, and it would take a lot of work to rebuild that, to just get it all back up to shape, versus getting a different car that doesn't have all that baggage and damage and all that, and then transferring to that? Is that kind of what you're saying, or am I missing the point on that?
That's a picture, and we see it when we're building new roads. So, literally, in our highway freeway world, we'll have an old highway that's windy and taking a route through the mountains, but it's really curvy and drop offs, and it's just a scary road. And so ODOT will come in and they'll resurvey what's possible, and they'll build a newer, straighter, less steep, more streamlined, safer
Wider
driving,
bridges.
wider road, just safer. So people go, yep, that old road's still down there, but this new road, everybody gets put onto that road because, wow, that's way faster, easier, safer to use. That's what we're doing. We call it a parallel identity. So it's parallel roads because the old is still there, but it's so much easier, faster, efficient, in line with who the individual actually is at their most authentic self, that the switch over is just easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the old, anyone that knows, I'm not a brain scientist, so I'm not trying to be, but we know through research and reading research that after neural pathways are not used over a certain period of time, that the brain just goes, oh, don't need that one. Let's trim that one out. Let's trim it out. So really what you're left with is the new. After it's been used and gets established, that's what becomes your go-to thinking, go-to reaction, go-to critical processes. The shifts are just like, it feels magical because you're not working to change a behavior. Often it just shifts naturally because you're just not working with the same road system anymore. You've got this whole upgraded way of thinking. And when you do that, the shifts are just like, whoosh, just
Yeah.
it's just there.
Yeah,
You,
bam.
bam, you just get to point A to point B so much faster.
That makes a lot of sense. I have a question that wasn't in your academic article, but it was in one of your blogs. That is about energetic set points. So we've been talking about emotional addictions, triggers, and removing patterns and all this. But your set point, can you talk about that and how that relates to maybe water as an analogy?
So we have the principle of the set point. What we're referring to is that we are at an energetic frequency. That's our normal. We can shift that. We can raise it, it can lower, and depending on emotional states and patterns that we are developing. So we could be in a pattern that's developed causing our energy frequency to rise, so our daily routine, or we can be in a pattern that's holding that space, or it can be we're reversing it. So any of that. What we can experience is we can go to, here would be an example. I go to a motivational speaker, they know how to fire us up. I am on fire. I am so excited about going into my life and I'm going to make these changes and I'm going to get this done. And it's just like I am, and I feel like at those moments that my frequency is on. I have raised my frequency. It is the world is just watch out world, here I come. But what we've done is we've gone into, if you ever seen a bunch of kiddos in a swimming pool and they go in and they're just wound up and they're splashing and the water just is going every which way. And you're going, wow, we've just added 10 gallons of water to that deal, to the swimming pool. But actually, it was just the motion. Everybody was in motion and splashing and kicking and having a great time. But when life is back to normal, the water level goes to set point. It's a set point. It's a fun experience. It isn't a sustainable
It's
experience.
temporary.
It's a temporary experience. And so I'm not saying, okay, it's bad, wrong, or anything, right? I'm not going to put a judgment there. But I just wanted to speak to that because our set point is what we can focus on. So I can, as far as a sustained, I am conquering the world. Like I am taking the world on. And taking the world on isn't an emotion. So it's a literal frequency. And everything we know energy attracts energy. So the set point, though, when we do our daily practice that raises our set point by increments, then energy attracts energy. You want to move your business to the next level, then raise your set point because energy attracts energy. You're going to line up with that frequency. And the clients, if you're building a client-based business, you will line up with those clients that are looking for you and etc. But it really depends on your set point. That's where to focus. And people go, well, how do I do that? That's a great question. How do you? And I've been talking about your daily practice. And that's where we talk about that in class because it is a set of let's find what is
The
the
root and
roots,
healing
let's
and
heal, there's all these really cool things that we can do sequentially that cause our frequency to rise and sustain at that point. So if you're like, I want that. Yeah, we do want that. So that would be a conversation. Reach out to me at janellrae.com, Janell Rae at janellrae.com. That's my email. And say, hey, I want a conversation about, I want my set point to continue to rise because it's totally tangible and it's a daily practice. It's a weekly practice. It becomes part of our life. It does become part of our life. And it's this beautiful journey. And the higher our set point gets, all sorts of things start shifting in our environment because energy affects everything. Friendships, opportunities, wealth. It just really connects to success in all of its forms. Happiness, joy, feeling complete. It really lands on the set point.
That's one thing I found so interesting is that all these things are interrelated and they're interconnected and nothing is a standalone. They all support or hinder you in one way or another. Like we've talked about the emotional addictions, and the opposite of that would probably be things that are emotional supportive things, right? Because we've talked about the spiral upward, right? In your article, you had things that can spiral you upward. Now you talked about the set point going upward, and then things that could drain you. So it's fluid. There's a set point, but it's not permanent. Thank you, Janelle, for sharing all this information. I'm sure people are going to want to know more about working with you or how they could actually get some of these changes in their life. Remember, the best way is to send an email to Janelle at Janelle, and that's with no E, at janellrae.com. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on our next episode.
Great to be here. Thank you.